the next 7 days, I'm going to be giving you Christian book recs from all different genres, and this is day 1. Today's book is The Dragon and the Stone by Catherine Butler, which is the first book in the Dreamkeeper saga. This is a middle grade fantasy book that has allegorical themes similar to The Lion Witch and the Wardrobe, so if you like the Chronicles of Narnia, I recommend this book. We're following a 12-year-old girl named Lily who one day finds a dragon eating her dinner, which is definitely a normal thing to happen. She convinces herself that it's all her imagination, but later she ends up being transported to a new dimension where she has to fight to save that world from evil. There's magic and unicorns and dragons, but it is all an allegory to represent the gospel. I read this book when I was 12 and I absolutely loved it then. I ended up reading the second book too, and now I think it is a 5-book series, so I definitely need to reread this book and read those next books. And you should read it too because it's a really good book. 7 days of Christian book recommendations, day 2. Today's book is a medieval fairy tale retelling called The Huntress of Thornbeck Forest by Melanie Dickerson. This is a Robin Hood retelling where the girl is Robin Hood. By night she poaches animals in the forest to feed the poor. You're not allowed to hunt the animals in this specific forest, but she does it to feed the poor. But by day, she's just a regular girl and no one would suspect her of this at all. We're also following a guy in this story who is in charge of taking care of the forest that our main girl is hunting in, and he has to catch her. These two end up meeting at a festival, but they don't realize that she's the poacher and he's the one hunting the poacher. So you can just imagine how that would go. Or maybe you couldn't. And that's why you should read this book, to find out what happens. This is a young adult book, and I definitely think that it's appropriate for teenagers. Like, if you're 12 and up, you're good to read this book, and I think you would like it. I'm sorry, it's been a long time since I filmed videos, and I kind of just forgot how to do it. Anyway, if anything about this book sounds interesting to you, I highly recommend it, especially if you like the story of Robin Hood. 7 days of Christian book recommendations, day 3. Today's book is Sirens and Sea Captains by Courtney, and I don't know how to say her last name, but anyway, this is a Regency-inspired romantasy, which is kind of a mouthful, but it's basically a fantasy romance set in the Regency era. We're following a 17-year-old girl who gets the lovely surprise from her father of being betrothed to some random pirate who she's never met before in her life. She's at this ball where she's supposed to be introduced to suitors and stuff, and then suddenly her dad is just like, by the way, she's getting engaged to this captain. Congratulations. And so they become betrothed right then and there. And she finds out that the next day she has to just go on his ship with him. And it goes from there. On top of this girl trying to figure out why her dad just randomly betrothed her to this guy, she has also never been allowed to be near the water because it's full of sirens. So it's gonna be a dangerous trip that she's randomly going on. I know I did a bad job explaining what this book is about, but genuinely, it is so good, and it still has faith content despite the, like, magic in it, but it's not really that magical. Anyway, it's still a great Christian book, and I love it so much. 7 days of Christian book recommendations, day 4. Today's book is a Christian dystopian, and it is called Reverence. This book is set in the future where a plague swept over America and only one city in some state, I can't remember which one, but only one city survived because they like built a wall and kept all the residents inside, and everyone else outside of the city was just out of luck. They were just gonna die, and it didn't matter to the people in the city. Years later, they are having a problem with overpopulation because, believe it or not, if you confine everyone to one tiny place, you'll probably run out of space. So the leadership of this city decided that when every single citizen was 60 years of age, no matter the circumstances, they had to basically be put down like a dog. That was definitely not the right way for me to put that, but it is kind of true because they just inject you with this stuff that makes your body slowly shut down until you're not alive anymore. There's also a program put in place where people can volunteer to essentially sacrifice themselves for the good of everyone else. And for a week, those volunteers get to do whatever they want. They have an assistant that makes those things possible, and they get to live at this really nice place. So their wish might be, I want to go swimming. That was a weird example, but like all these things that they can go do, and all their last wishes, like I want a really nice meal with my children or something like that. When the week is up, they died the same way as everyone that turned 60, except they get a whole reverence ceremony where they revere these volunteers and like celebrate, and then the cycle starts over the next week with new people. Oh, I also forgot to mention that if you have some sort of like disease or illness like cancer or something like that, they will go ahead and just in your life and don't give you any sort of treatment. And so that ended up happening to our main character's mom. She had cancer, and so her life ended. And years later in the future, our main girl ends up working for the government and becomes one of those assistants that helps fulfill the last wishes of the volunteers. One day she gets a client, one of the volunteers that comes in, and it's this young man who doesn't seem like he wants to die. She does not understand why he's here. She doesn't know. And so basically his last wish was to spend the week with her. And she's like, I don't know this guy. I've never met him. Why does he want to spend the week with me? So they end up going and doing these things, and she's basically figuring out why is this happening. There are Christian themes in this book, and there is hope, obviously. I don't think there's a whole lot of Christian dystopian out there, and out of the ones I've read, this is definitely one of the best. 7 Days of Christian Book Recs, Day 5, I think. Today's book is a medieval fairy tale retelling similar to Day 3, and it is called The Healer's Apprentice by Melanie Dickerson. You've probably heard me talk about this book before, and that is because it's very good. This book is loosely inspired by Sleeping Beauty in the sense that it has similar plot points, however it is different enough that it feels like its own story. We're following Rose, who is training to be a healer's apprentice. However, the sight of blood makes her feel ill, and that's obviously a problem if you're going to be a healer, because I would assume that you do in fact see blood. Then one day the future Duke is injured and Rose has to tend to him, and maybe a romance blooms. Maybe there's a romance. A love triangle, perhaps? Maybe there's one of those. Oh, but did I mention the future Duke is betrothed to a mysterious woman who is in hiding that he's never met before. So obviously that complicates things for everyone involved. And that is essentially what this book is about, and it is so good. I love the way that the power of Jesus is portrayed in this book. There's almost a little bit of like spiritual warfare, I feel, is what that would be classified as. Like, just the way the power of Jesus is portrayed in here is just phenomenal. So I highly recommend it if it sounds interesting to you. Also, there are some great side characters in this book. These two people, I love them with all my heart. If you wanted to know that, that's not important. 7 Days of Christian Book Recs, Day 6. Today's book is an interesting one because I do not know really what genre it's in, but I'm gonna go with a romantic suspense / mystery is my closest guess, because it's unlike any book I've ever read before. And that book is Because You're Mine by Colleen Coble. In this book, we are following an Irish singer who is in a band with her husband and a few other people. They are performing in America when suddenly our main girl's husband dies in a car wreck, which they believe is caused by a bomb. That is obviously very hard on her, especially because she is currently pregnant with his child. For some reason, her father-in-law wants custody of her baby. I guess he just thinks he deserves it. I don't really know. And it's looking like he might win the battle for custody because she is not an American citizen. I don't really understand how that works, but somehow he was able to use that fact that she's not an American citizen against her somehow. So it's looking like the only way that she can save her baby is to become a United States citizen through marriage. So she enters into a marriage of convenience with her manager. She goes to live with him in this creepy mansion that he lives in, and some weird things start going down. Some interesting things happen. It's very mysterious, I'll say that. Things start to threaten her life, and she's starting to wonder if it's coincidence or it's by chance on purpose. That was not a great explanation of this book, especially because I do not remember how the whole her not being a citizen thing played out in this book. I read this last year. But regardless, this is such a good book, and I'm still on the hunt to find more books like it because I haven't read anything else like it. The plot and the setting of this book is so eerie and mysterious, and it is so entertaining. There's some crazy plot twists in here, and I definitely recommend it. I do think this book is like 15 and up just because it is heavier with like the husband dying and everything, but there's also some things in it that are just not appropriate for the younger audience while it is still a Christian book. So just kind of look into that if you want, if you're on like the younger side, I guess. But if you're older than 15, you should definitely read this book. It's really good. 7 days of Christian book recommendations, day 7. Since this is the grand finale, it felt only appropriate to talk about my favorite books ever. And if you watch my channel consistently, you already know what those are. So without further ado, we have The Huntress series by Carrie Cotton. These are the most amazing books ever written, and you need to read them, please. These books are medieval Christian fiction with romance and action and just everything that it could ever need, and that makes it perfect. In this first book, we are following Serene and Duncan. Serene is the queen of a kingdom in the forest on the outskirts of Duncan's kingdom because he is a king. Serene is crowned queen at a very young age because there was some sort of war that happened, and they don't really know who's actually at fault, but these two kingdoms start to battle it out, and as a result of that, Serene's mother, who was the queen before her, dies and she becomes queen. Years later, Duncan's father dies from a plague and he becomes king. Duncan never wanted to be king, but when he became the last of the bloodline, he had no choice but to become king. As things start to unfold, there is a lot of political drama, but like in the best way, not like politics today, but like kingdom, like kings and queens politics. There's a lot of drama and a lot of mistrust because both kingdoms think the other one is the bad guy. And so you as the reader are going on a journey with them to figure out who is actually at fault in this situation. There's also a problem with invaders, and so these two kingdoms may or may not have to find a way to work together. I really want to tell you more, but I don't want to spoil it because there's just so much good stuff in here that really you just need to experience for yourself. This beautiful series follows all different characters, so the characters from the second book are mentioned in the first, and so on and so forth. By the time you get to the last book, which is The Songbird, you will have seen like a whole world and so many characters that you will love all of them, except for the ones you're not supposed to love. But truly, this book is an entire journey, and I feel like this all happened to me. Like these were lives that I lived. These are my experiences. Like, it's written that well that it feels like it happened to me. And these were all my emotions I felt, all these experiences. It's mine. It's written that well. Truly, I cannot explain to you how phenomenal this series is, and you have to read it. I really want to tell you more, but I need to stop because I'm going to start spoiling it. So please, just read this series.